Good morning. Today is the 11th of November. It's Veterans Day. And we've had a number of little fireside chats, if you will, over the last few months. I thought that today would be an appropriate day to visit. You see on my left a statue of Edgar M. Halliburton. This was a statue that was made by Cyrus Dallin in 1918. This is the first American soldier to be captured in a foreign war not on American soil. His name was Edgar M. Halliburton. It's called Captured but Not Conquered. He was captured by the Germans when they raided the trenches in the Argonne, and he was to become an example of a cowering soldier who had been captured and downtrodden by the enemy. And the title of this, as you can see by his posture, that it is called Captured and Not Conquered. We are delighted to have this here in our shop. There is only one other example of this, and it's at the Springville Museum. The Boston Museum of Fine Arts and other museums in the country do not have a copy of this. There are plasters of it that are throughout the country, but there are only two originals that we have been able to find. It's interesting, this man became a victim of his own posture and his own attitude, and he came to very much have disdain and dislike for this statue because it represented a heroic thing that he had to be, and because of the trauma of World War I and the circumstances, he suffered from PTSD. We actually acquired this from people who bought this from a storage unit that had been abandoned in Los Angeles of his things after he had died of alcoholism. Not a pretty picture. Well, we've come far in the treatment of our veterans. We still have a far way to go. This poster was used and put into every post office in the country with an image of this statue on it and a poem dedicated to him. "O little boy that used to roam among the peaceful hills of home, with none to fear, so wild and free. In dreams, you often come to me. These dimpled hands were my delight. Excuse me. These fearless eyes were closed each night in gentle slumber on my breast. This baby form was lulled to rest. A little boy that used to be, O captive son beyond the sea, who smooths for you your prison bed, who pillows your weary head." And it goes on. I was watching last night on C-SPAN the 75th anniversary on September 2nd of this year of the end of World War II. And I had a number of thoughts about that. Just 3 blocks to the north here of our store was the home of the father-in-law of Mervyn S. Bennion. Mervyn S. Bennion was the captain of the United States battleship West Virginia. He was killed directing fire on the bridge of his ship at Pearl Harbor. He received the Congressional Medal of Honor. As it happens, his father-in-law was J. Reuben Clark, who had been the Undersecretary of State under Roosevelt and who had been our ambassador to Mexico. Just a few weeks before the bombing of Pearl Harbor, David O. McKay had lunch with him in the wardroom on board the battleship West Virginia. You know, these things are close to us. I think it's hard to realize how immediate this war was. I grew up a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile from here on the lower avenues. In December of 1944, 3 years after the beginning of the hostilities of World War II that the United States entered into, there was a memorial service in what they call the 21st Ward, which encompassed about a half a square mile up on the lower avenues. They had a memorial service for those who had served during that 3 years and less than a month of World War II for 192 people out of that small area. Now, this week, my uncle died. He was 94. He was the grandson of Joseph Thomas Mabie and Sarah Lucretia Tolman Mabie. Joseph Thomas Mabie was born in 1845, and his last surviving grandson, my uncle, died this week. The interesting thing about that is that when he was 17 years old, he entered the Navy, and he went down to Alameda, and as a 17-year-old boy, he was required to identify the remains of the soldiers, Navy personnel who were shipped into Alameda for identification. So I can see him going through those dental charts and examining the teeth and doing whatever else he could do to identify the remains. Can you imagine that at 17 years old? I am dumbfounded at the debt that we owe those who have gone before us, who laid down their lives, their comfort, their desires, their ambitions to go forward in the cause of freedom. And on this day, which is Veterans Day, I bare my soul, give thanks, and bow my head in thanks and humility for their sake and for my sake, that which they have fought to preserve would be preserved in my heart and possibly in the heart of others who have benefited directly from their sacrifices. Thank you very much.